Hey folks, it's Tom, your frugal prepper. I got this Porsche sitting behind me. Has a drivability issue where it starts, stalls, it'll run for a few seconds, and it'll rev up and seem fine. When it comes back to an idle, it stalls and dies. I noticed as they were backing it off of the trailer yesterday that when it died, it smelled very rich. So I'm going to see what we can figure out. Chiltons doesn't give us a whole lot of information on this. My Chilton Online seems to give me the oil change interval, and that's about it. BBB Industries does have a few wiring diagrams, which could come in handy. So the history on this guy is it had a check engine light on it for a while, but it ran fine. They didn't really do anything about it. And then this started happening. The owner thought it might be a fuel pump, but since it smells really rich when it dies, I don't think it's a fuel delivery issue. I would lean more towards some type of idle control issue, or potentially an EGR valve issue. Something like that going on that is causing that mixture to be way off and causing it to stall out. So since it has a check engine light, should be global OBD2. I should be able to get some type of code out of it. I don't think I can do OEM specific on this with my tool, but I should be able to at least read some codes, even if I can't define them. Maybe look them up online and just do some basic diagnostic work on this guy and see what we can find out. Alright, so this has got the fancy key here. I'll go ahead and start it up, and let's watch the tack and everything. Let me find where the key goes in. Oh, it goes on the other side. Okay. I'm normally a Chevy kind of guy. Alright, oh, yeah, okay. So I think you just turn this, and then you just have to wait. I don't know. I'll press brake pedal, okay. So it kind of is idling now. It starts getting all rough. I tried to hit the gas and it just kind of died. I hit the brake pedal again. Woo! It seems fine at a higher RPM, and then at an idle, it just all of a sudden. Alright, so we'll go ahead and pop the hood and see what we can see. Actually, I'll go ahead and get the scan tool out and let's see what we can find on it. Maybe get some direction. So I got the scan tool hooked up. Let's go ahead and turn our ignition on. Okay, that's on. Let's go ahead and plug in our scan tool. Just see what it finds. Trying to do an auto link up with it. Definitely it says service now on the display over here. It says it linked to the KW2000 protocol. Let's see what it finds. Sometimes European cars just take forever for the scan tool. There it goes. So we got a crankshaft position sensor correlation, bank 1. That's not good. Sensor B. Is this your vehicle? Yes. Okay, so Porsche stored, blah blah blah. I want to go to diagnostic trouble codes. And then look at what's stored. Engine coolant temperature sensor circuit low input. Incorrect immobilizer key. I don't care about that. Crankshaft position sensor correlation. You know, that's a sign of a slip timing belt. Possibly. Porsche stored a P0017. No, that's a Porsche specific code. But crankshaft position sensor A. Intermittent bank one or single sensor. You know, when I rev it up, it runs too good to have a timing issue, to have a slip timing belt. I think what we probably have is a crankshaft position sensor that's not, it's got an intermittent signal. Now, the problem I have is I don't know which of these codes could be from before, old codes. See, this is a stored code. I don't see any active codes. Let me go back through all these. Engine coolant temperature sensor, that's a stored code. Incorrect immobilizer key is pending. And crankshaft position sensor correlation is a stored code. And then there's this P0017, which is a Porsche code. I'm just going to go to special functions and see, here's Porsche OEM enhanced, and it's not supported for this vehicle. So I want to look up on the internet and see what that 0017 might be. And that P0017 is also a crankshaft position sensor. It's the one that's on, I think, the left side back under the exhaust manifold. Again, I don't think this is a timing issue because it runs good once you rev it up. It runs good for a minute and then it kicks out. So there is a chance of fuel pump, because what you have is a primary fuel pump, and then when it has more load, it'll kick in the secondary. So my thought is when we rev it up, the secondary kicks in, it gets fuel pressure, maybe. In the absence of any real codes, fuel pressure is a good thing to check. It's quick and easy. What we're going to go ahead and do is check the fuel pressure. I'll show you here. My little cheap eBay fuel pressure gauge actually did have an adapter for this tiny little Schrader valve, and I've got this hooked up. So what we'll do is we'll check and see if that fuel pressure stays around 50 or 60 pounds, and if it starts dying, if it drops. And if that does, then what we'll do is pull the fuse for the primary pump to force it to run on just the secondary pump, and we'll see if the fuel pressure then stays good, and then we'll know that that primary pump's dying. Alright, my fuel pressure gauge was leaking a little bit here. I put an O-ring in there. Let's see if that helps. Oh yeah, hear that backfire through the intake? Oh yeah, that's a fuel pump problem, alright. Yeah, definitely a fuel pump problem. Anytime you hear that backfire through the intake, I hadn't heard that yet. That's a dead giveaway. So fuel pressure. So the owner's diagnosis was actually right. I think what's happening is it almost dies. Maybe that secondary kicks in and dumps a bunch of fuel in there all of a sudden, trying to recover, and that's where the rich smell was coming from. So now I got to go to the dentist. When I get back there, we'll pull that fuse for the primary, see if it'll run on the secondary only. And that'll tell us it's just the primary pump that's bad for sure. So I did manage to find a wiring diagram on this on BBB Industries, believe it or not. So I see the two relays here, fuel pump left, fuel pump right, and you see these come over to the actual fuel pump. Looks like this is the fuel pumps and the fuel level sensors. You see there's a 70 liter a minute pump and a 30 liter a minute pump. The 70 liter a minute pump is probably the primary, that's the left. And then this one kicks in to add a little extra normally when it needs it. And so what I'm guessing is this left pump is the primary that's dying. And we see here's the relay. We follow that back down here, and it's fuse F14. And then this right pump would be fuse F13. So that's good. We can pull F14 first and see if it starts running right. My guess is this is like a lot of other European style cars that have a primary and secondary pump. If the computer realizes that there's nothing coming out of that primary pump and like it doesn't have voltage to it, it goes ahead and kicks in the secondary pump, and it'll just keep running off of that. Of course, you can't do that long term because that pump doesn't have the volume that it should have, and you'd probably end up burning it out. But that'll probably make it at least idle, and we'll know that we definitely had a fuel problem in this bad pump. So we'll head out here and pull F14, see if it runs. If it doesn't still, we'll pull F13 and see if it runs. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this cover off. I believe the fuse box is right under here. Got some like plastic squeeze there. Put them out of there. Yep. Okay. And then there is the fuse. Let's cover down here. Looks like it's got some Torx bits holding it on. There's one over here. It seems like it might be one piece. There's one clear back here in this corner. Okay, so we're looking for fuse F14. Let me kind of show you from another angle here what we're looking at down in here. Move this fender cover. So yeah, this is just connectors, relays, fuses. There is a little diagram on here, maybe on this side. Yes. So 14 is this 15 amp one right here. So we'll get a fuse puller and pull that guy out. What happens? Alright, so there's fuse 14 pulled out, which is the left fuel pump. Now I'm going to go ahead and start her back up and see if we have fuel pressure. Fuel pressure again. Alright. It ran longer that time. We're going to stick 14 in. Pull 13 out. See what happens. The fuel pressure comes right back up once it dies. So even running on the secondary pump alone, it still doesn't maintain enough pressure. So the question is, does that secondary pump even have enough to run it? Does it automatically try to switch over to it? Is it running on the secondary pump even when the primary is plugged in because the primary's failed? Certainly seems to run the same. Did the primary fail and it's been running on the secondary? Now the secondary is failing. Could a fuel filter be plugged? Probably not. I think from what I'm looking, the fuel filter is in with the pumps on these. So it's up to see. But we definitely don't have fuel pressure getting up front in a sufficient quantity. So I'm going to do a little more research and see if there's anything else I can check, and we'll see. Alright, so what I've done is pulled the left side fuel pump out. I got this little adapter I've made for doing current tests. It's got another 15 amp fuse in there. Just in case there's ever a short, you like to have these jumpers fused for safety. Don't want to catch somebody's car on fire. We'll put that down like so, and then I've got my meter. If you need a meter that measures DC current really affordably, I'll put a link to this down in the description below. It's the TAC Life meter. It's actually a really well-built meter for a really low price. I don't need the test leads for this. And we'll put this thing on current. We'll put it on 40 amp. We'll zero it. Flip it around here. And then we're going to see what kind of a current reading we get. Or attempt to. There's no current there. 0.5, 0.6. So that tells me the left side fuel pump's dead. So now let's try checking the current on the right side fuel pump. Still looks pretty zeroed. Alright, let's try it now. I'm not getting much reading off of that guy either. Seen it kick in, now it's kicked off, it's losing pressure. Drop pressure. Out, out. Kicks back in. Draws 9.11 amps. Now it's kicked it off. Okay, now I'm just going to check the primary again. No current coming in from that one at all. Yeah. So this running only on the secondary pumps. What's going on? Alright, so looks like once it sees the pressure drop enough, the computer's kicking in the secondary pump to bring the pressure up, and it almost dies and then kicks back up again. So my guess is that we can see current coming and going on the secondary pump, but we see nothing on the primary pump. That might mean that secondary pump just isn't meant to run a whole engine, right? Or you know, it probably just means that they're meant to work in conjunction and they're not. So I guess what we need to do to confirm the diagnosis is make sure we have voltage and everything going back to the pump, and make sure there's not voltage drop back there. And we'll put a test light on it and put it under some load. So let me see what I got to do to get to this fuel pump. Alright, I'm kind of hungry. There's some Fritos in here. Alright. Let's see what we got here. I got these triple squares. So I could dream about owning a Lamborghini one day and needing them. And turns out I'm working on the Porsche and I needed them. I'm glad I have them. Those things are in there tight. That is going to need a ratchet to get to that one. And then there's one back here. So let me take those out with a ratchet. Nope, still can't take it up with fingers. They got quite a bit of Loctite on these bolts. Alright, now let's see if I can get to this one down here. Put it back in this corner. Gotta move that up out of our way. The rest of this flap should fold kind of back. I'm gonna cut this a little more right here. There we go. Alright, now we just got some little 10 millimeters to remove here. And we'll have this thing open, hopefully. A snap-on tool was used to fix this car. Now we'll see if we can pry this cover up. He's stuck down on there pretty good. There we go. Alright. So there should be 4 wires going into here. The 2 thick ones are going to be our fuel pump. The other 2 are going to be the fuel sending unit. Alright, so I'll slide my red one over here. Slide me a black one in over here. Make sure I get into the connector. Let's take red there, black here, and then we'll just go ahead and put this light on. And this will actually put some load on it. We'll see if this light should light up nice and bright. If everything's making contact, we don't want to short these out. There we go. Let's see what happens. Light nice and bright. It tells me we don't have a voltage or a voltage drop problem. Just trying to run that pump, but the pump's not running. So I will call that a confirmed diagnosis. it needs a pump. It's handling a load, it's running that bulb. It's just not getting the voltage, or it's just not, the pump's not pulling any voltage or current, which just means it's got an open in it. It's dead. So we'll have to replace her. I think that other one is kicking in. That's what the car's running on. It's drawing about 9 amps, which is about right. I don't think it needs that one. We'll see if they want to replace them both. We can. I personally wouldn't, but I guess sometimes people, while they got everything tore apart, just like to get it done. So let's put these back on here loosely for now, so nothing falls down in there. And we'll give the customer a call and let them know they need a fuelie pumpy. Alright, so that gets it all diagnosed. We know it needs a fuel pump on the left side. I'm going to let the customer know. I'm going to get the part, put it in. Nobody, of course, has parts for Porsches in stock around here. Maybe there's a Porsche dealer somewhere, I don't know. But it's probably going to take a few days for it to come in, and then we'll get that installed. It's not a cheap part. So I wanted to make sure the wiring was good, that kind of stuff. Try to really make sure before we pop a pump in it. And I'm like, uh-oh, it still doesn't work, right? So I'll do a second video when the part comes in on installing this, and we'll see if I was right. I'll talk to y'all later. This is Tom, your frugal prepper. Be happy out there.